Hey everybody, I'm Justin with AmericanTrucks.com, and today we are taking a closer look at and installing the PowerStop Z36 Extreme Truck and Tow setup for the front and rear of your 2014 through 2018 Silverado 1500 at home. Now, you guys should be checking out this complete setup for your third gen if you're looking for an affordable turnkey package to totally overhaul and update both the front and rear brakes on your truck at home, improving your stopping power most importantly, but also improving your appearance in the process. All right, so before we go any further with this video, guys, I do want to remind you that this kit is for both the front and rear of your third gen Silverado at home. I know I don't have all the components on the table with me here today, don't really have the space, but just keep in mind, yes, you are receiving both front and rear components. All right, so let's break things down here. Let's start off with the foundation, if you will, and that is the company's cross-drilled and slotted G3000 cast iron rotors, which, as you can see, have been finished off in this really nice silver zinc coating. That's just there to help prevent any rust or corrosion on your non-friction surfaces. Next up, let's talk about that cross-drilled and slotted design. You got a couple things working for you there. First up, those slots. Those are going to be there to help keep that pad surface clean. A clean braking surface typically is a more effective braking surface. As for those holes, well, those are drilled to help aid in cooling. Now, PowerStop claims that with this design here, surface rotor temps are dropped by nearly 180 degrees. That in turn is going to help reduce brake fade, especially when the system is working pretty hard to haul down maybe a trailer or some heavy payload. Now, the second part of the equation is right here, guys. That's a Z36 heavy-duty carbon ceramic pad for both front and rear setups. Now, the Z36 is going to be unique to this particular kit, guys, and it's a specific pad or compound that is built specifically for heavy-duty truck and SUV use. Now, when combined with all of the components you see here, PowerStop claims that this is going to help increase your stopping power by roughly 20%. And that's solid, right? Especially when we're talking about maybe some worn or tired components on your truck. Now, along with more initial bite that the pad is going to offer here, basically the first time you stab that pedal should grab pretty hard. These are also going to be a little bit more resistant to heat long term. And again, that is huge. Heat is the enemy of not only performance, but braking performance specifically, because heat leads to fade, fade leads to poor performance, and those white knuckle moments on the road. Again, that only gets magnified anytime you are hauling or towing something heavy. Brakes are going to be worked a little harder, or even if you've added a larger set of wheels and tires. A lot of time truck owners don't think about this, but those 33-inch or 35-inch mud terrain tires are pretty heavy, especially when compared to stock wheels and tires. So adding something like this will certainly help restore some of the braking power you might be losing out on. Finally, guys, those Z36 pads are going to be loaded into the front and rear remanufactured PowerStop calipers, guys. Now, if you're wondering, these things, yes, they are remanufactured, but they've been totally gone through and given things like brand new hardware, pins, bleeder screws, fresh rubber boots and seals, and then finally everything is finished off in a bright red high heat powder coat to help keep things looking good for many years to come, and as an added bonus will look really nice behind your favorite set of wheels. Now, I do also like to point out here, guys, that the PowerStop kit is backed by a 3-year or 36,000 mile warranty, whatever comes first, just in case you should run into any issues. Let's quickly talk about price here, guys, because the PowerStop kit, I think, occupies a pretty unique space in the category when it comes to budget. You're looking at right around the low $1,000 price point for both front and rear calipers, rotors, pads, and hardware. Certainly going to be a little higher than maybe your generic parts store replacements you'll find down at the local store, but at the same time, this kit is not nearly as expensive as some of the options you might find for an aftermarket big brake kit from companies like Wilwood, Brembo, or so on, that can sometimes reach the $3,000 to $5,000 range, if not more. So with that being said, yes, it's certainly a little bit more expensive from your bare bones budget-friendly options, but you are getting things like the slotted and drilled rotors front and rear, getting the brand new remanufactured calipers with the fresh powder coat. So certainly offering a few things that those generic parts store replacements are not. Switching gears, let's get into the installation, and I would say brake jobs like this are kind of like the basics of automotive wrenching, right? But since there is some elbow grease involved and there is a good bit of work involved because you are replacing every caliper, you're gonna need to bleed the system. The site is gonna kick things up to a solid 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter. Call this one a couple of hours at least to complete from start to finish. But now what do you say we head out to the shop, give you our detailed walkthrough and tool breakdown.
The tools you'll need for this project are a 1/2-inch ratchet, a 3/8 ratchet, a T30 Torx bit, an 11mm, a 13mm, 18mm, and 19mm socket, as well as a 13/16 wrench, an 18mm wrench, and some sort of a clamping device for your brake lines. Hi everyone. Today we're installing a set of brakes on our Silverado, so let's get started with the uninstall first. First thing we're going to do is remove our brake line from our caliper so that we can get that off of there. And to do that, what you're going to want to do is use some sort of a clamping device on your brake hose to make sure that you don't lose too much brake fluid. Now I'm just using a pair of needle nose vice grips with some rubber hose on the end of it. And we're just going to clamp this on close to the end so that we lose as little brake fluid as possible. Now we're going to use our 11mm socket to remove our brake line from the caliper. Now you will lose a little bit of fluid, but it shouldn't be too much. So now we can just go ahead and get this out of the way and go ahead and finish taking off the rest of our stuff. Now we'll go ahead and remove our caliper, removing the 2 19mm bolts, one at the top and one at the bottom. With our bolts removed, just lift up on our caliper and get it out of the way. Now we can go ahead and remove our caliper mounting bracket, an 18mm bolt here and another one down here. So let's go ahead and take those out. We lift that out and the pads will come with it. Now to remove our rotor, we're going to need a T30 Torx bit to remove this screw right here that's holding it to the hub. And with that out of the way, we can just slide our rotor off and we're done with the install. Now that we're ready to install our rotors, we need to make sure that we're putting the right one on the right side. One of the ways that you can tell, obviously there's a sticker on here that says it's for the front driver's side. The other one will say it's for the front passenger side. Another way that you can tell is look at the slots on the rotor themselves. As long as you're facing the vehicle correctly and the slots end towards the back of the vehicle, then you know you've got the right one for the right side. Another way is look at the stampings on the edge of the rotor here, and it will have the part number listed as well as a left or right marking on it. So just make sure that you're putting it on the right side of the vehicle. And one other thing before you actually put it on, we recommend that you go ahead and use some brake cleaner, spray down the contact area for the pads just to make sure that there's no manufacturing residue left on here or anything that got on there from shipping. So we'll go ahead and spray this down with our brake cleaner. And then wipe it down with a clean cloth. and make sure that you get both sides as well. Now we can go ahead and get this installed on the truck. Now we'll go ahead and slide our rotor on, and you want to make sure also that this alignment hole here for the retaining pin lines up with the hole on the hub. So we'll slide that on. Reinstall our Torx bolt and tighten it down with our T30 Torx bit. That'll make sure that we hold it in place while we're putting on the calipers and our brake pads. Now we can go ahead and install our new anti-rattle clips into our mounting bracket here. And they're just going to snap into place, and tension will hold them in. Now, once you've got your clips in, we can go ahead and install our pads into the mounting bracket as well. And you want to make sure that the pad that has the wear indicator on it goes towards the inside of your mounting bracket. Also, we recommend that you use the supplied lubricant to put on the ends of your brake pads. It'll help reduce the noise and the movement as well, and also put some of this lubricant on the back side where it's going to be contacting the pistons and the caliper. Now, because we're not making this a permanent change to our truck, we're not going to put the lubricant on there, but we'll just go ahead and install the pads. So you just slip those inside the anti-rattle clips. And now we can go ahead and slide this into place and reattach the mounting bracket using the original hardware. Now we'll go ahead and slide our pads over the rotor and get the mounting bracket into position. And go ahead and insert our original hardware. Now we'll go ahead and tighten these down using our 18mm socket. Now we can go ahead and install our caliper. Now, before we actually install the caliper, you want to make sure that you take off the old copper gaskets that go through the bolt that holds your brake line to the caliper. Make sure that you get those out of the way. And also make sure that you've got a clean mating surface between the bolt and the brake line itself. So we're going to put a new washer on the brake bolt, insert it through the line, put a washer on the other side. Again, making sure that these are clean and you have the new washers in. And then we'll go ahead and insert that into our caliper. Now we can go ahead and slide our caliper onto the new mounting bracket. Now we can go ahead and install the supplied bolts to hold the caliper to the mounting bracket. And we'll tighten them down with our 19mm socket. And now you can repeat that process for the other side. Now we'll go ahead and tighten down our brake line with our 11mm socket. Remove our clamp. And now you can repeat that process for the other side. Now we're ready to tackle the rear of the truck, and we're going to do the same thing that we did for the front. We're going to put a clamp on our brake hose pretty close to the end so that we don't lose too much brake fluid. And then we'll remove the 11mm bolt that holds the hose to the caliper right here. Now we just get that out of our way. Now we can go ahead and remove the caliper using the 2 bolts at the top and the bottom here, and go ahead and pull that out. Now we'll use our 13mm socket for this upper and lower bolt. You may also need to use a 13/16 wrench to hold this inner nut here when you start to take off the bolt, because it may start spinning the whole thing around. And as is the case, we are going to need it. And with our 2 bolts removed, we just slide our caliper out and get it out of the way. Now we can remove the 2 bolts that hold our caliper mounting bracket on here, and we're going to be using our 18mm socket to take those bolts out. Now we can slide our caliper mounting bracket along with the pads right off. And now we can go ahead and slide our rotor directly out away from the vehicle and get it out of the way. Now you can repeat that process for the other side. Before we install our rotor on the rear of our truck, we want to make sure that we've got the correct rotor for the correct side of the truck. One way you can do that, obviously, is by looking at the sticker that says rear driver's side. Another way that you can tell is across the top on the outside edge of the rotor. There's the part number and some minimum thicknesses and dimensions written down. At the end of your part number, you're going to have an L or an R. L is for the driver's side, R is for the passenger side. One more way that you can tell to make sure that you're putting the right rotor on the correct side of the vehicle is look at the slots in the rotor. As long as they're ending towards the back of the vehicle, such as this, then you know you've got the right one. Last thing before we actually put this on the truck is you want to make sure that you clean your rotors with some brake cleaner before you put it on there, just to make sure that there's no manufacturing residue or anything got on it during shipping. So we're just going to spray this down with our brake cleaner. And wipe it down with a clean cloth. Make sure we get everything off of there. And of course, make sure that you do the other side as well. And don't forget to get the inside where your parking brake pads will make contact as well. Now that we've got it clean, we can go ahead and get this installed on the truck. Now we'll go ahead and slide our rotor over our parking brake onto our hub. Now we can actually install the caliper mounting bracket. So we're going to be reusing the original hardware for our mounting bracket. Go ahead and get those started. And we'll tighten them down with our 18mm socket. Now we can go ahead and install our caliper. Now before we install our caliper, we need to install our new anti-rattle clips and our brake pads. So to install the anti-rattle clips, you're basically just going to sit this over the caliper mounting bracket and press them down, and tension will hold them in place. Do the same thing for the top. Now before you install your pads, what you're going to want to do is use some of the supplied lubricant and just put a little dab on the ends of the pad right here, and also on the back side where it's going to be contacting the piston. Now since we're not doing this as a permanent fix to our truck, we're not going to bother putting the lubricant on there. Just let you know what you need to do for yours. And once you've got the lubrication on your pads, then you go ahead and slide them into the anti-rattle clips. And push them into the rotor. And we'll do the same thing for the back side. Now we can go ahead and install our caliper. So now we'll slide our caliper over our mounting bracket and over the pads, and install the new supplied bolts to attach it to the mounting bracket. Now we go ahead and tighten down our bolts using our 13mm socket, and you may also want to use an 18mm wrench to hold the inside part here so that it doesn't spin while you're tightening it down. Now we'll go ahead and attach our brake line to the caliper. Now before you attach your brake line, you're going to want to make sure that you remove the old washers from the brake line bolt and reinstall new ones that are supplied in the kit. And once you've got the old washers out, make sure that you've got both of them off of the bolt. Just go ahead and wipe this down. Make sure you've got a clean mating surface on the brake line and on your bolt. And then we can install two new washers that are supplied in the kit for you. And then go ahead and attach it to our new caliper. And we'll tighten it down with our 11mm socket. Once you've got it tight, go ahead and remove your clamp. Now you can repeat that whole process for the other side. One last thing, after you've got everything installed, make sure you torque it down to factory recommended specifications, and then you can bleed your brake system. Now we're not going to be able to show you exactly how to do the bleeding of the brakes here, But basically what you're gonna do is make sure that you've got brake fluid in your master cylinder. You're gonna start with the farthest caliper from the master cylinder. So in this case, it would be the right rear caliper. What you're gonna do is you're gonna have a second buddy with you. What they're gonna do is compress the brake pedal 2 or 3 times, and then you're gonna open up the bleeder valve on the caliper, let all the air out of the line, close it back up, pump the brakes again, and continue that process back and forth until there's no more air coming out of your lines. Once you've got that done, then you can move to the next one. And like I said, you're gonna wanna do this farthest caliper from the master cylinder and work your way back around. And that wraps up our review and install of the PowerStop Z36 Extreme Truck and Tow 6-lug brake rotor pad and caliper kit for the front and rear of your 14 to 18 Silverado 1500. Thanks for watching, and remember, for all things Silverado, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.